Not quite my first public appearance. It makes it sound like I've been in a rabbit hole or something. But no, I have been out and about. By the way, thank you very much for the lunch. There's nothing like carbo loading before the robust activity of giving a speech. So, but I very much appreciate all of you for being here. I appreciate the invitation. Mesdames et messieurs, j'apprécie votre présence ici aujourd'hui. Donc, avec un sujet qui est très important pour tous les Canadiens, les créateurs, les consommateurs, tout le monde qui constitue l'économie canadienne, qui veut voir une modernisation de nos lois sur le droit d'auteur. C'est quelque chose qui est très important pour tous les Canadiens, toutes les Canadiennes, pour chaque région de notre pays. I hope you don't mind me coughing, and I'm excuse me, may throw in the odd sneeze. I'm on the cusp of a bad cold, so I apologize for that. But I want to thank in the very beginning the Canadian Intellectual Property Council for inviting me here to speak to you today. And I want to commend the great work that all of your organizations are doing to support Canada's intellectual property regime and to work with your members to support the modernization of Canada's creative economy. I know that the contribution that the copyright industries make to Canada's economy cannot be understated, both in terms of stimulating investment and in creating jobs. The arts and culture sector, for example, just within this context, is a massive portion of the Canadian economy. It's $46 billion in Canada's GDP. The arts and culture sector of the Canada's economy is 3 times the size of Canada's insurance industry. It's twice the size of Canada's forest industry. It is a massive portion of the Canadian economy, over 600,000 jobs in the Canadian economy, dependent on robust and effective copyright legislation that reflects modernization but also reflects the need to have the incentive for continued investment in these important jobs. And before I speak any further, I want to talk a little bit about the Canadian economy in general, to update you about where Canada is. You know, Canada's economy is in great shape, and I want to talk to you just very briefly about where we stand as we are about to host the G8 and G20 summits. As you know, our government has been diligently implementing what we call Canada's Economic Action Plan. This was our government's comprehensive response to the worst economic downturn that the world has seen since the Second World War. And the results are in, and in Canada, we are on the right track. We are emerging from the global economic recession powered by one of the strongest economies in the industrialized world. In fact, the data is quite clear. Not only are we emerging, Canada is in fact leading the world. By key measures of job creation, economic growth, stability of our financial sector, and relatively low public debt, Canada is performing better than the United States and other G7 countries. And here are some facts. The decline in output in Canada during the recession was the smallest of any G7 country. Canada is the only G7 country to have virtually recouped the loss in output during the recession. And as a matter of fact, I believe, as Minister Flaherty's report said yesterday, 74% of the job losses that we saw during the recession have now been recovered. 3/4 of the jobs those 3/4 of the jobs that we have lost are regionally balanced across the country in terms of the economic recovery as well. And Canada is the only G7 country to record a year-over-year increase in employment this past spring. So looking ahead, both the IMF and the OECD expect that Canada will have the strongest economic recovery of all G7 countries over the next 2 years. These globe-leading statistics are no accident. Our government put in place one of the largest stimulus packages and of focused spending measures and focused tax relief, coupled with a robust existing banking system that the world has seen. As Nobel Prize-winning economist Paul Krugman recently noted, quote, "We need to learn from those countries that evidently did it right." And that list, and leading that list is our neighbor to the north. But the global economic recovery remains uncertain, and at home, too many Canadians remain out of work. Just as the recession did not originate with the Canadian economy, it also remains vulnerable to the developments that are happening elsewhere. So we must work together to finish the job that we've started. And that job includes following through on our commitment to consider Canada's legislative, regulatory, and fiscal policies to seize opportunities. And in our throne speech, we made a commitment to tackle one such priority, and that is the need for copyright reform. We pledge to strengthen the laws that govern intellectual property and copyright. We pledge to do this within a framework that encourages new ideas and protects the rights of Canadians whose research, development, and artistic creativity contribute to Canada's prosperity and the quality of life of all Canadians. We also committed to launch a digital economy strategy, and it's important that we base the digital economy strategy on a modernized copyright framework that aims to be as technologically neutral as possible. And I'm proud to say that we've been working hard to fulfill those commitments. As many of you are aware, on the 2nd of June, we introduced the Copyright Modernization Act. The proposed legislation represents a balanced approach, one that our government believes protects the works of creators while recognizing the interests of consumers and Canadians. The legislation reflects a variety of views expressed during consultations on copyright reform that we held this past summer. The consultation featured an interactive website, open public town hall meetings, multiple stakeholder meetings and roundtables across Canada, and written submissions from everyday Canadians. Canadians talked, and our government listened. Canadians told us that they wanted a technologically neutral framework that would stand the test of time. This bill introduced its technologically neutral provisions. It is principle-based and is flexible and adaptable to any changes in technology while ensuring appropriate protections for both creators and users. Thanks to this technologically neutral approach, Bill C-32, the bill, will continue to be relevant for any technologies that come down the pipe. Copyright owners told us that the current Act did not give them strong enough tools to target those who enable copyright infringement. The best way to fight piracy is by targeting those who knowingly enable online infringement. This legislation will give copyright owners new tools to seek damages from those enablers. Artists and creators told us that they deserve to be fairly compensated for their creative work and their investments, and they're right. The proposed legislation provides new rights, protections, and tools to encourage new business models. It will provide certainty for artists and creators to engage in the global digital marketplace with confidence. Copyright owners told us that their online and digital business models depend on strong protections for digital locks, and they're right. With Bill C-32, we are proposing protections for digital locks. The bill gives creators stronger legal tools for protecting technological measures, including digital locks and other methods that creators may choose, that they choose, to use to protect their works on the internet. For example, using items like in tools like encryption and password. Creators and consumers will also be able to benefit from legal protections for their rights management information. This ensures that the identity of the creator and key information is always connected to the work. These new tools will enable creators to protect their investments, and these measures will also help enable their business models. At the same time, this strong but balanced approach also includes a specific list of exceptions for certain activities, such as encryption research and security testing. Canadians will also have the ability to unlock their wireless devices in order to switch service providers, so long as it respects existing contracts. Canadian consumers told us that they want to make reasonable use of content that they've legally required, and we agree. The bill legitimizes many commonplace private and non-commercial uses of copyright material that are currently not allowed or where their status is not clear under the existing Copyright Act. These uses include posting mashups on the web or time-shifting television programs. Canadian consumers also told us that they want clear rules and that they don't want new taxes. Our legislation rejects the three strikes proposal that has been implemented elsewhere in the world. We have chosen to maintain a notice and notice regime of the original Bill C-61 rather than a notice and takedown regime, and we have said no to new taxes or fees on consumers in the form of levies on iPods, MP3 players, computers, and other devices that play digitized music. These measures are all strong defenses of the rights of consumers. Canadians with perceptual disabilities told us that the law needed to better reflect their needs, and we agreed. The legislation that we have introduced permits Canadians with perceptual disabilities to adapt legally acquired copyrighted materials. Businesses told us that the Act stood in the way of ordinary uses of technology. Through Bill C-32, we will provide companies with the tools that they need to innovate by allowing temporary reproductions of copyrighted material. Canada's innovative firms told us that they need clear copyright rules in order to roll out innovative business models, and we agreed. This legislation proposes new exceptions for computer program innovators, limitations on liability for internet service providers and search engines, and clarifies that making temporary technological reproductions of copyrighted material is acceptable. Canadians also told us that fair dealing should be expanded. The bill expands the existing uses of and allows for fair dealing by adding education, parody, and satire. It recognizes the incredible potential that technology offers education and protects students and teachers' aspirations to learn and impart knowledge in new and creative ways using the latest technologies. With respect to education and research, our legislation also introduces new technologically neutral exceptions that allow these sectors to take advantage of the opportunities created by new technologies, particularly the internet. This includes, for example, an exception for the use of publicly available material on the internet for educational purposes, a provision that the Copyright Consortium of the Council of the Ministers of Education, or CMEC, has been requesting since 2001.